me to be able to attend this meeting. I would like to present my teamwork recently in deep learning and its applications. The topic is deep learning-based recognition of mental factor features. During the next 20 minutes, I will show introduction, related work, methodology, experimental, and conclusion. I'll be grateful if you ask your question after my presentation. First part, introduction. Mental materials are essential in modern industrial fields. Under the action of a complex environment, mental materials cause fatal accidents such as fracture, corrosion, fatigue, etc., which bring heavy economic losses and casualties. Fracture is a pair of matching surface from the after mental accident occurs, and the occurs location is often the weakest place. Traditional mental fracture recognition methods are usually based on workers and technician experiments and relevant knowledge, which is not only difficult to grant accuracy, but also has certain requirements for the time and the environment. Recently, some experts present solutions to slow the intelligent recognition of mental fracture in image process. For example, HWM, wavelet, SVM to be used linear or nonlinear classifier. However, the methodology of the mental fracture is more complicated, and the features are difficult to extract, and generally, it's hard to obtain the good accuracy. Here we present an image recognition method based on feature function of multi-sense region of interest to identify mental fracture through deep learning. Let me introduce some related work. First one is transfer learning. In deep learning, due to the depth of model and the amount of parameters, there are two problems. The first one is lack of Lambo trained samples. A domain tasks no sufficient number of training samples and Lambos, and B domain, on the other hand, related to the A domain, has a huge number of training samples. The second problem is distribution of data will change. How to deal with these problems? Transfer learning can help. As we know, transfer learning means knowledge in the B domain is transferred to A domain to improve classification effort and does not need a lot of time to label the data from domain A. At the same time, there are various features, data, and weight information in pre-training model. Some of them are more common and they can be shared. Here is a schematic diagram of transfer learning fine-tuning using fraction F0 to pre-process the image and remove the edge pixel value and reduce the image size. The model is divided into two parts. The first part is deep learning model trained on ImageNet, and the other part is fine-tuning model according to our task. Ensemble learning refers to use a series of learners to use certain rules to integrate results of each learner to obtain a better generalization performance than single learner. Here we use bugging algorithm, and the rhythm diagram is shown in this figure. The advantages of ensemble learnings are include the first one, after merging multi-volume learners, it has more reasonable classification boundary to improve accuracy. A second one is the training multi-week learners with different data subsets, then merging them into a stronger learner. 3. When the data division boundary is too complicated, it's difficult to obtain better results by using linear classifier alone. You can consider training multi-model and then merging them. The fourth is for multi-heterogeneous feature sets, consider using each data set to build a separate classification model and then merge them. The third technique we use is CAM visualization. CAM is class active map. It's a visualization method in deep learning. Here, use gap to replace fully connected layer and treat gap as a special average pooling layer to avoid overfitting. CAM visualization helps to understand which part of the image take part in the convolutional neural network, then make final classification decision. This method helps to study recognition mechanism of a convolutional neural network and debug the decision-making process. The right figure shows the results, the fractal data set by VWG16 classification CAM visualization. As the following part, I would like to introduce methodology. Before experiment through transfer learning and fine-tuning mechanism, we fix the shallow weight parameters of the network model and optimize the weight parameters of the classification layer and the deep part. And taking VWG16 as an example, a fine-tuning diagram of transfer learning is shown here. And in order to compare the characteristic points of the three models, that is VWG1619 and ResNet 50 in image recognition, select 9 images of Cleve fracture we call CF, integrator fracture we call RF, and the dipole fracture we call DF. Perform CAM visualization test about 3 models. This figure shows the CAM results of about 3 models when identifying different types of mental fractures. Please look at the red cycle. Take VWG19 network model, misclassify the CF, and the second one, ResNet 50, misclient RF. At the same time, you can see the CAM visualization results on same mental fracture image. The active regions of these 3 network models are different. This phenomenon can also verify the above conclusion. So this leads my next point, how to improve the work. Here we will present 3 methods. Because different models focus on different areas of interest. In same image, here we can consider fusing multi-model features to make the fused model have a function to focus on multi-view interest features. This game supplies features of different scales and introduce multi-scale nature of the model. The designed multi-view fusion model structure is shown here. and the optimizer was delta, and the learning rate is 0.01, and training iteration round is 8,000 times, and the batch size is 16. These two figures shows the accuracy and the loss diagram of above of training and test on Kaggle public data set. And the left one shows the change in training accuracy, and the right one shows the change in loss value. It can be seen that the number of iterations increased, the accuracy of algorithm gradually increased, and the error value decreased. The second one, is multi-view Fulgen timing. Because the WG16 and 19 are very similar, except for the dips, the Fulgen of structure features of similar model might be cause feature reductory. To slow about the problem, after feature averaging design network model for feature splicing, as a feature of WG16 and 19, then splice the feature of the ResNet 50 at different scales to introduce multi-scale nature of the model. Multi-view Fulgen timing model is shown here. This solution can reduce the feature dimensions, further reduce running and test time, and improve efficiency of learning. This figure shows the results of above, and compared with the multi-view Fulgen model, this model can reduce oscillation and increase steadily, and while the error curve decreased. The third model is the Volt model. These three models are still a single decision model after fusion, but for the about three network model structure, the final model can be determined by the majority of classification results. These three models trained on Kaggle dataset were used to predict the same image. We can get three test results. Then these three results voted, and the voting strategy took the case with most voting results as the final classification results. In order to verify the effective of our algorithm, this section designs three sets of comparison experiments. The first set of experiments were used to verify the performance of image recognition method based on feature fusion of multi-sense region of interest. The compare algorithm include WG16, WG19, ResNet, and their fine-tuning models, as well as DensiNet network models. The results of recognition accuracy are shown in this figure. In this table, we can see that our algorithm has better accuracy in both Kaggle public settle and the mental fracture data set. The second set of comparing experiments was mental fracture image data set. This group experiments use the traditional method learning KNN algorithm, SVM algorithm, and our Volt model to identify mental fracture image. The accuracy results of each method are shown in this table. It can be seen that the traditional machine learning algorithm based on feature extraction are difficult to achieve a high recognition accuracy in metal fracture tasks. One reason is that the morphology of the metal fracture is relatively complex and the boundary and texture are rich. It's difficult to effectively extract a corresponding feature by existing feature extracting algorithm. Our voted algorithms recognize accuracy more than 96%, which verifies the effectiveness of the method on task of mental fracture image recognition. The final gives the image recognition method of multi-sense interest area feature fusion image recognition on mental fracture. This result states that our voting mode can work well identify the different fracture style. Finally, I'd like to make a conclusion. I talk about the feature fusion of multi-sense region of interest for mental fracture. Morphology make use of transfer learning along with the ensemble learning to transfer the features of different interest regions from VWG 1619 and the ResNet onto our algorithm. Once the feature can pass through this transformation, they can be blended on mental fracture background to produce complete fusion models. The model was valid by comparing results obtained by 3 fusion models trained on public dataset and the mental fracture dataset, respectively. The experiment shows that the effective of this method on task of mental fracture image recognition. The next search might be placed on lighting and accelerating the model and improve the accuracy of multi-perceptual interest region feature fusion. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it has been my place to give my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer it. Thank you very much.
张教授，很感谢您的报告，我们的印象很深。沈副教授，我们欢迎注意听您的报告。
Уважаемый профессор Джан Суйсю, большое спасибо за интересный доклад.
尊敬的钟教授，非常感谢您的报告。
Слово для доклада предоставляется Шэн Ху.
沈副教授，我们欢迎您的报告。
Okay, good afternoon, dear professors. I'm Hu Sheng from School of Electrical and Information Engineering, Stanley Jiaotong University. And the topic of my presentation is fractional order signal processing techniques and applications. Here is the outline of my presentation, including the fractional processes, fractional order signal processing, and some applications. Here is the introduction, also is some background of my presentation. In ancient times, natural number was used at first. Then the fraction was gradually understood. for example, the golden ratio, the natural exponential, and so on. People came to recognize the beauty of the fraction, use the fractional eye to view the world, use the fractional thinking to ponder and answer the nature of phenomena, use the fractional techniques to solve some problems. We all know the first dimension, two dimension, third dimension. Actually, here is the fractional dimension. You can see in this figure is the 1.58 dimension. It's very interesting. This presentation will give you some normal insight in some complex fractional random signals and some fractional order signal processing. Actually, in the traditional signal processing, we also know some stochastic processes, and we all use some stochastic signals. For example, the mean, variance, covariance, and so on to analyze some signals. We also use the filtering, the process modeling, the transform domain analysis techniques to study these sub-signals. But actually, the traditional research is about this assumption is independent and identically distributed. The coupling between values at the different times decrease rapidly. And we also assume the signal is stationary. But actually, in the practical applications, however, the assumption unknown is actually not be realistic. So we will use some other techniques to deal with some complex signals. Here is some reasons, also the motivations. The first is the heavy-tailed distribution. We all know the Gaussian distribution, but here is some other non-Gaussian distributions. Secondly is the power law decay of the correlations. And the third is the local memory. And the common properties of this is the power law. Actually, about power law here is very interesting. For example, where we can say the power law. For example, the fractions of the words in most languages, the size of a crater on the moon, the size of the solar flares, the size of a power outage, and the earthquakes. And what is the origin of the power law? Actually, we can get some results from the fractional calculus. And what the power law results from? Maybe we can say that learning integer order differential equations, we can get the results is the exponential function. But the linear fractional calculus differential equations, we can get the Leffler function. This is the exhibit power law behavior. So we can use the fractional calculus and some power law signals to study this. So what is the basis of the fractional order signal processing? We can use some the research. For example, the fractional calculus, alpha stable distribution, and fractional Fourier transform. Here is the fractional calculus, the definition. Here, actually, we have the many definitions. The most one is the three steps, the definition. And this is the actually these three steps is the constant fractional calculus definition. And also we can get the distributed order fractional calculus definition. Here is the definition equation. And also we can get the variable order fractional calculus the definition. It's actually is the time variable. It's changing with time. So this is the alpha stable distribution, the definition, and the fractional Fourier transform. Actually, the fractional Fourier transform can be interpreted as a rotation in the time frequency plane with the area alpha. So we can see some of the fractional process in part 2. First is the upper stable processes. What's the characters of this kind of the process is actually is the spike. And we can see the probability density in this probability density, was different from the, for example, the Gaussian distribution. Actually, this is the heavy tail. In this figure, the blue line is actually the Gaussian distribution, and the others are the alpha stable distribution. So we can see that heavy tail in this figure. Another is the fractional Brownian motion and the fractional Gaussian noise. We all know the Brownian motion. So this is the fractional Brownian motion. What is the difference between these Brownian motions? It actually is the fractional Brownian motion has the long memory. Also, we can say it's the long range dependent. And the fractional Gaussian noise is the increment process of the fractional Brownian motion. And also we have the fractional stable processes. And we can use the first parameter to estimate the long range dependence, or maybe this is the long memory. And here the parameter is in the location is 0 to 1. Also, there are some Hurst parameter estimators that actually there's also a lot of other methods to estimate the Hurst parameter. So here also we have the multi-fractional processes. The multiple fractional process actually is the relation with the time variable fractional processes. So here we can say some about the Hurst estimator for multi-fractional processes. We can estimate using the h of t. H is the Hurst parameter. It is the time varying with the time. So here are some of the fractional order signal processing techniques. And the first one is the fractional low order moments. We all know the one moment, the second moment, and others. What's the fractional low order moments? Actually, is the lower than 2 is the fractional low order moments. Also, we have the negative order moments and the fractional covariations. So here is the upper stable processing. Actually, how we can synthesize or also we can say is modulate some of the fractional processes. Actually, we can use the white Gaussian noise as an input through a fractional derivative, and then we can get the fractional Gaussian noise, and then we can use the integrator. We can get the fractional Brownian motion. Here is the example of the model, the fractional Gaussian noise. And also we can use some modeling techniques. This is the fractional autographic integrated modeling average model, is the Freeman model. Here is the difference between the ARMA model is that here there is a parameter D. The parameter D is a fractional parameter. So also we can use the fractional Freeman with stable innervation models. Actually, we can use some like this is actually is a fractional second order filter. This is the fractional filter. It's different with the traditional filter. Traditional filter is also the integer order filter. This is a fractional order filter. Here is the gamma parameter here. The gamma is the fractional parameter. So we can get the fractional order filters. Also, the fractional order filter has its different characteristics. So this is the impulse response of this fractional filter. Also, there's also some other parameters. So this is the discretization. It's also we can how to use it. We just use this discretization method to get the use it. Also, how to realize. Also, we can use how to use the circuit, the analog circuit, to realize the fractional system. Actually, we can use this factor. This is a fractional capacitor. The fractional capacitor, actually, we can use it to realize for example, the fractional order integrator is realized the analog circuit. Here is an experiment about the constant order fractional system. We can use this factor to realize it. And how to synthesize some multifractional processes is the time variable fractional processes. Also, we can use the white Gaussian noise as the input. Through a fractional integrator, we can get the multifractional Gaussian noise. Then also we can use the integer integrator to get the multifractional priming motion. So here is an example of multiple fractional processes. Also, we can simulate some multifractional alpha stable processes. The character of this kind of processes is some impulse, actually some impulse. We can use the white stable noise as the input through a fractional integrator. We can get the multifractional stable noise. So here is the example of the multifractional alpha stable processes. This is the experiment to realize the variable order fractional systems. It's very interesting experiment. Actually, we use the factor, the parameter of the factor actually is changed with the temperature. So we can use the heat flow to control the temperature. We can get the time varying fractional systems. Here is the relationship between the fractional order and the temperature. So we can say that with the temperature increasing, the parameter is also changing from 0.9 to 0.95. So here is also we have the distributed order integrator and the differentiator. This one is some different from the constant fractional integrator and differentiator. So here is some research results about the discrete fractional integrator. So here we will say some about the last part is about the applications of the fractional order signal processing. So the first one is about the network traffic prediction using the improved Freeman model. This one is used quantum generative algorithm to optimize this kind of the Freeman model. So here is the flow chart. And here is the 100-step prediction results of the improved Freeman model. The blue line, the cross line is the actual value, and the red third line is the predicted value. We can see that it's almost the same. And here is the comparison of the results between the before and after optimizations. And the second one is about the analysis of the electrochemical noise signals. Here is the frequency analysis results of this kind of the signals. Actually, we can use this kind of signal to say what the current happens in the list, for example, the metal and the nanoparticle coated metals in different solutions. Here is 3 solutions here. solution A, solution B, and solution C. So actually, we can say in the right figure here, we almost can note to find what is the which is in the solution A and which is the other solutions. But if we use the other techniques, the fractional techniques, is the fractional Fourier transform. We can say that it's very clear. We can say that it's the difference with the solution A, B, C. So here is the other results. And also we can use the local Hertz parameter to estimate the current happened in this metal in different solutions. Here is another application. It's optimal fractional order damping strategies. Actually, we all know about some. This is a fractional mass strain viscoelastic damper. This is very different from the traditional ones. Here we use the fractional systems to realize it. And here is the spring mass viscoelastic fraction ones and the time delayed fractional systems and the distributed order systems. So here we can get the results of the step response of this kind of the systems. The red one is the integer order system, and the green one is the fractional order, and the black one is delayed fractional order, and the blue dashed line is the distributed order. So we can see here the fractional order system is better than the integer order system. And here is another application, is the fractional signal processing techniques using it in the molecular motion. So here is the motion, and we can get the jump is the time series, jump time series, and we can use the Hertz parameter to analysis. So here is some results, and here is we use the diffusion entropy method to estimate the Hertz parameter, and the right one is the h of t is the local Hertz parameter. We can say it's the difference between the molecules. And the last one is the fractional signal processing techniques used in the analysis of electropsychology. Is the EEG signals. Actually, is our sleeping EEG signals. We all know that the sleep stage here is the 4 stages. The stage 1 is actually the earliest stage of sleep, and the stage 2 is the principal sleep stage, and stage 3 is referred to a deep sleep, and the REM stage is about the low voltage brain waves and the rapid eye movements. So here is some different stage of the EEG signals. The first one is the awake EEG signals, and the second is the sleep stage 1, and the others is the stage 2, 3, and the REM stage. So here is the 30 minutes sleep EEG signals, and we use the local Hertz parameter to estimate. Actually, we can use the local Hertz parameter to estimate our sleep. So here is the first is the awake stage, and this is the stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So here is another is about the 10 minutes sleep EEG signals, and also we use the local Hertz parameter to estimate. Actually, to evaluate it. So we can get conclusion. The fractional processes manifest themselves by power laws, as we can say it in the front. So Also, we can use the Pavlovsky correlations or local Pavlovsky also correlations to use these techniques to analyze some of the complex signals. The fractional calculus offers stable distribution and a fractional Fourier transform based on fractional signal processing. We can use actually is the power techniques to analyze this kind of signals. Okay, that's all of my presentation. Thank you.
Уважаемый профессор Шэн Ху, большое спасибо за интересный доклад.
我们很感谢申副教授您的很有意思的报告。
Сейчас у нас объявляется перерыв до 2 часов хабаровского времени.
我们现在有一个时间去吃饭。到2点，我们赫巴洛夫斯克的时间。
Затем мы продолжим работать согласно нашей программе.
然后我们继续开会。
Спасибо. До встречи в 2 часа.
非常感谢，2点见面。